women, black people, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, and all the minorities, that all of us must stand up together and say, no more.
I suspect because I was a 1950s person, I assumed that I would have to get married, have children, and live a life more influenced by someone else. And it took me a while to realize that actually we can make our lives in all kinds of different ways. What I think of is how important it is for women to be able to have a home without necessarily also having children, husband, a home of our own. Home means safety, shelter, friends, sleep. Home may be, I don't want to say it's more important than love, but it's more permanent. And I feel that especially now, because there are so many people in the world who have no home. I had been living in New York, even before getting this apartment, with my friend Barbara Nessum, who's an artist, and we were living in a one-room studio. So to find this that was 2 big rooms was like heaven. And in order to have 2 places to sleep, we built this balcony, which actually is the front porch of some unknown person in Connecticut and was in a wrecking yard. So whoever got in first got the balcony, and whoever got in second got the couch in the other room. I was just happy to be in Manhattan, happy to be out of Toledo, Ohio. This floor was the only floor that was open, and it was also very cheap in those days. Years later, I bought the downstairs and made a staircase. But I always think of anthills. Have you ever seen a real anthill? I mean, they're very complicated. They're like huge apartment buildings, and all the ants have made different spaces. So I feel that that's what's happened here over the years. This room has been for a lot of years, I'd have to figure out how many, a meeting place. And I always thought that we had kind of invented this style of sitting around with 12 to 20 people in a circle. And once Wilma Mankiller, who was the chief of the Cherokee Nation, was here, she said, we have a talking stick, which we pass around. So when you're holding this, you have the right to speak. So I think in a lot of ways we're always reinventing something that's universally human. All these pieces have different memories. There's a still life on the wall going up those stairs to the balcony that my mother painted when she was a teenager. Those are the arms of the Mona Lisa protecting the rainforest. That is President Obama's inauguration with their 2 daughters. And this was the Madonna I bought on a trip to Latin America because she was the only Madonna of color. My older sister was a gemologist, so I had access to all of these amazing eggs that are semi-precious stones or enamel or many different things. This coffee table was a door in India someplace. It reminds me of India. I didn't buy it in India, mind you. I couldn't have brought it back, but it helps, I think, when each thing has a story. There actually was a wonderful painting hand-done on the wall by an artist from London. Then there was a kind of flood that damaged the painting, so now this is actually wallpaper, but it's the same idea of a vista. On this floor, where I, with a roommate often, have lived for a very long time, what is now a kitchenette here was the only kitchen. When I bought the downstairs, there is now another kitchen. My ideal of cooking is dialing. Well, and now even dialing is old-fashioned, so it's phoning. What is now my bedroom on this parlor floor was the shared workspace with me and Barbara Nessum. So it's been through many reincarnations. It's both more bedroom and more living space now. I remember seeing in London a library ladder, I think in a club or something, and I thought, oh, how great is that? And in that room, since the ceilings are so high and the bookcases are so high, I really could use and did find a library ladder. So I'm very proud of that. Those tassels, their origin was women who were working in a factory in Afghanistan, and their bosses made them cut their hair off because they thought it was a safety hazard to get their hair, caught in the machinery. They, meanwhile, missed the whole feeling, as we can understand, of having hair that you could toss back. And so they created their own kind of headpiece with something they also could toss back. It makes me think of those women. And the peacock feather was a symbol for me because I'd been living in India, so that's a kind of magical thing. And peacocks walking around your lawn. Downstairs is much more meeting and workspace, plus a guest room. I always wanted to have a space for people who were visiting New York, so it allowed me to create what is often a guest room downstairs. Meanwhile, organizers, workers, political people, friends, whoever it is, need to pass through New York. So it always seemed right to be able to contribute at least a guest room for one or two people with its own bath. And that's my contribution. There was someone I met here on the street, I think, and he was an artist, so I'm not quite sure how it happened. Probably it was his idea, but to have painted bookcases because it allowed you to memorialize favorite titles, and it also increased and lengthened the vista of the room. And women in the mountains and hills of Afghanistan wear these tops with lots of embroidery. They pass them down from mother to daughter to onward, and every generation adds more embroidery or more little silver bits added. And I was at the time going around to auctions to try to find cheap things like those two chests. And when I saw this desk that says on the front, "Look into thine heart and write," I mean, how can you resist? So I had to have it. The garden. Well, ironically, I don't spend much time in the garden. The trees have meaning. I mean, I had a friend who's no longer with us, Irene Neves, who was a journalist, and she adopted my garden. But just the ability to have an outdoor space seemed important. That sculpture is beautiful in and of itself, but it's also universal because it, for me, connects me to Africa, where we all came from in the first place, and means travel, means creative women. The Cherokee Chief dogwood means a lot to me because it symbolizes Wilma Mankiller. In my garden, I have a Mary Wollstonecraft plaque, which reminds me that various current living generations of women who are trying to democratize a patriarchy can identify with their courage, when they had not even a separate legal identity from daughters or wives, could not vote. So it's definitely an inspiration. Sometimes people think she's buried out there, and I have to explain. That's not the case. It's very comforting to live in rooms that have been lived in by many other people because you feel a companionship. When I was building the staircase from this floor to downstairs, I discovered a penny from the 1800s that some workman had left in the bricks as a trace. It is also great to live in the midst of stories you gradually discover. Where we live, if we're lucky not to be displaced by war or poverty, the places we live are like birds' nests. You know, we have carefully chosen each little twig and brought it home to weave it into our nest.